Hey YouTube, got another review for you today. The popular Zoom Hyperfuse 2011. Uh, First thing I want to say about this shoe is a lot of the things they say about it is true, but I found that some of the things that they say is not true. Uh, First thing that I would say that is true about it, it doesn't crease. The toe box is still smooth. You're gonna get a little bit of creases throughout where you lace it, but yeah, that's unpreventable. But as far as the traction, it's pretty good. But I've heard that it's phenomenal, and that's true most of the time. But the difference that I would say is that the floor has to be clean because at my gym there's a little bit of dust on the floor, and it didn't perform even as good as the Kobe 6. And a lot of people said that the Kobe 6 with its snakeskin grip pattern was very compromised. But even the Kobe 6 gripped better than these did on that floor. But on the other end, I played at them at my church's gym, which is very clean, and they gripped far better than the Kobe's did. So they don't handle dust that well. So make sure you have a clean floor. But if you wipe them clean one time, take your hand and just wipe them clean, they grip really well until they get dust on them again. So they have to be kept clean on the bottom for them to grip all right. But I disagree with what people said. A lot of people say these shoes run narrow, but if you look at the width of the shoe, I mean, it's not that narrow, I don't think. And even if it was, I mean, you can unlace it, loosen it up a little bit. But I thought it was very true to size. It gripped really well. But I've played in it for a while now, so I can tell you a little bit of how it plays. But we'll start with how the shoe looks first. Start with first the Hyperfuse, how it works. But it's 3 layers. There's a synthetic layer on the top. There's a structural layer on the very inside. You can see this is harder than this blacker part. And then of course there's the mesh. So you have the mesh, the inner structure, and the synthetic. And it's fused together. It's not sewn together. It's all just it's like a 3-layer skin, and it's actually very smooth. Like you can't like stick your fingernail in there and feel the difference. It's very smooth. It's not really textured, so it makes you feel like the shoe will last. It's not something that'll peel up or fall apart. In fact, one thing I wanted to say about this, even though it has to do with the performance and I was going to start with the aesthetics, but it just needs to be said, is that this shoe is very strong. Like, even though, when you associate with a strong shoe, you usually think like the Flywire, the strong nylon fibers that hold your foot in place. This does not have any Flywire in it. It's just a Hyperfuse upper. And this is my first Hyperfuse shoe, and it's very strong. Like, in fact, if you had the Hyperfuse, or not the Hyperfuse, but the Hyperdunk 2010s, you would have said those shoes are very strong. Like, they just grab your foot, and they have good structure, good stability, and lockdown. And these shoes beat them without the use of Flywire. And also, the shoe is fairly light. It's about the same weight as a Hyperfuse 2010. In fact, in a size 10, I believe it is, it's 12.4 ounces, which isn't bad. Also, the shoe is balanced. I'm holding my 2 fingers right at the center of the shoe, and it's not favoring the back or the front. It's actually a balanced shoe. The forefoot is about the same weight as the heel. It's really balanced, which is new, because I've never had a shoe that's actually balanced. Like, it feels evenly weighted throughout the shoe, and this one's fairly even through and through. As far as the aesthetics, the different thing is, this is not a fabric wrapped midsole. This is simply a texture, kind of like a golf ball, which I mean, I'm pretty sure it doesn't make a difference, but they're going off the theme of speed. And if you didn't know, having dimples is actually makes something faster. You know, it has dimples up here as well, but that's why there's dimples in a golf ball. In fact, if you didn't know, it's illegal to put dimples in a baseball bat because it makes you swing it faster. It actually does make things faster, but I don't think that's why they put these on here. I think it's more for a speed theme. I don't think putting dimples on a shoe is gonna make it any faster. Um, there's not really too many aesthetics about this shoe because it is, of course, a performance shoe. Um, the mesh looks nice. I mean, I had a lot of compliments on these shoes the first day that I wore them, and days afterwards. There's nothing theme-wise on the bottom. This is a traditional herringbone pattern, and it has this Y cut in the bottom. And I've heard that this is for, when you do a spin move, plant your heel and spin on it. And I actually think I believe it serves a different purpose because when you strike, when you're running, this Y allows for the midsole to kind of spread out a little bit. It's like a flex groove in the heel that allows the sole to kind of spread out a little bit like the ball of your heel would. And if it spreads out a little bit, it'll disperse that impact a little bit. So I think this is a cushioning function. But of course, I haven't had any problems with spins either. Spin moves. It does grip for spins too, but I think it's more of a running function. This shoe really does remind me of a running shoe with basketball features. When someone asks me about this shoe, that's how I describe it. It's like a running shoe because it doesn't have a midfoot shank. It has a very flexible but strong upper. It's very strong and flexible. That's the odd thing about the shoe. It's two things at once that usually don't coexist. It's strong and flexible. That's hard to find. One con about this shoe though is it has a zoom unit across this section right here, right where the pad of your forefoot would be, which is, of course, for that responsiveness. You don't make cuts on your heels, you make them on your toes. But it does not have a zoom unit in a heel, and I don't know why they didn't just maybe knock the price up $5 more and put a zoom unit in the heel. I would have much rather preferred that. The cushioning does fine when you're running and on maybe light jumps, but if you go up for a rebound and you're fairly athletic, you can get off the ground and you're going to have a fairly rough impact. This heel does compromise a little bit. It's not very soft. Sometimes it feels like the floor is directly underneath my foot, which isn't exactly a good thing. I'm 6 foot and I weigh 150. That's not even a real heavy body. I mean, if someone was more, athletic, got a bigger body, I could see this being an even bigger problem for them. That's why when our school chose a team shoe this year, I casted my vote for the Hyperdunk 2011s, and I will be getting those soon, and I'll do a review on those when I get them. But the Hyperdunk 2011s, they have a zoom unit in the forefoot and a zoom unit in the heel. Not to mention the zoom unit in the heel is thicker than the one in the forefoot. So, and I'm glad I went with that. I got these shoes after we had cast our vote, but I'm pretty confident in my vote with it. But let's get on to the actual performance now that we've talked about all that and as far as how it plays. The traction is pretty good. Like I said, you have to have a clean floor. This is supposed to be for lateral movements. Like when you sidestep, dig into the ground, this is up and down so that you get that sideways grip. And a lot of people said, oh, well, I think they should have extended this herringbone out to the edge. And honestly, I haven't had any slippage in this shoe, though. I think the shoe is fine the way it is, and maybe it might have been better with a herringbone pattern, but I've played really good defense in this shoe. Like, I like the way this shoe plays defense. This is a defense-created shoe, and it's more of like a person who likes the up-tempo game to run and play tough-nosed defense. I've actually been able to jump a little bit higher in this shoe, so it does enhance athletics a little bit because it does have a large Phylon midsole, which does give a little bit of spring and the zoom in the forefoot. And it fits the shoe very well. One thing people are always asking, what shoe makes me jump higher? If you want a shoe that makes you jump higher, get a shoe that has a lot of lockdown. You want a shoe that fits your foot like a glove. Because any kind of creases or places where your foot isn't snug with the shoe, that compromises any kind of loaded energy you get whenever you strike your foot to go for a jump. So just get a shoe that fits you really well. And speaking of which, this shoe has the best heel cup, as well, maybe not a heel cup, but the best heel lockdown I've ever worn in a shoe. It doesn't have actually a heel cup, more like a heel web. This piece is solid, this piece is solid right here, and this piece right here, these white pieces right here you see in this mesh window, these are solid. This is mesh, and this is mesh, and this is mesh. But those pieces are solid, but it makes for a firm heel cup. And the way that this collar is made is perfect for your ankle, like the shape of it. This is like a perfect little cutout for your for the tendon in the back of your leg, and then this is for like the ball of your ankles, the knobs on the sides of your ankles. So this shoe fits like perfectly in the ankle. It's the best fitting shoe I've ever worn. Honestly, this is the best fitting shoe I've ever put on. In fact, I've heard a lot of people say that you need to, of course, wear a high sock with this. I haven't actually worn a low top sock with this. I typically try to wear socks that are either crew cut or higher. So I don't know if this actually digs into your ankle, but I've heard from a lot of people that this will hurt your ankle if you don't have a high top sock. So, you'll have to find that out on your own, but that shouldn't be important. I mean, anyone can just go out and get a high sock. If you don't already have 30 or 40 pairs of them, it's not a big deal. The inside of the shoe, it's not an inner sleeve or anything. It's not a one-piece construction on the inside, but it does feel like it because the inside is constructed very well. One aesthetic thing of it, it has like a pattern on the inside, if you can see it. It's basically a white and black. It's just a pattern. There's no real thing I can describe it. It's just a pattern and it has a Nike swoosh in it. The lacing system, a lot of people said that this lacing system really hurts until you get it broke in. I never had a problem with it at all. I thought this lacing system was terrific from the moment I got it out of the box. It was very comfortable, and it's crazy because usually you can lace up a shoe and you can see where the parts of the shoe, they'll rise up maybe and kind of like not lock down on your foot. But the thing is, when you put the shoe on, the entire lace line is flat. The entire upper lays flat across your forefoot. So it's great. Overall, this is a terrific shoe. I'm so glad I bought it. I bought it for a practice shoe because we are getting the Hyper Dunks for the team shoe that we'll actually play our games in. This piece right here, it's aesthetics, to provide more black to the shoe, but also it's kind of like just a sheet to hold the side of your foot in, and it keeps your foot from sliding around inside of it, and it does a good job of that. It's connected to the to both the midsole and the upper, so it does provide some structural support. That's just another aspect that makes this shoe feel really strong. I don't exactly know how this shoe feels so strong, because unless they just, all these strategically placed structural pieces, these white streaks right here, are just perfectly placed because this shoe is so strong. Like, it feels stronger than a Hyperdunk 2010. I don't know about the 2011s yet because I haven't played in those yet. I've only tried them on in a store, and when we sized them at school. But this shoe is very strong, but it's also very light. It's a very light shoe, and it's great for running. It's like a running shoe with basketball features. Like I said, I mean, it's flexible. And even though it doesn't have a midfoot shank, it does have arch support in the shoe. You know, you can see it's bigger here and lower down here. It does